my name's Renee Smith, and I'm here today to tell you about my Thematic Reading Center and the books and lessons that I chose to go along with it. So I chose the topic Earth Day, and this is my Thematic Center. I created a bulletin board to go behind my books that describe how Earth Day can happen every day. It gives a brief little section of facts, asking the students, did they know? Were they aware that 1/3 of the average dump is made up of packaging material? So those little tidbits can help students be aware of the environmental impacts that our trash and things have. The second section down there at the bottom talks about the power of recycling and lets them know that it does actually matter to recycle. For example, recycling 100 aluminum cans could light your bedroom for a whole 2 weeks. And that's a nice little tidbit for them to realize that recycling can be very important and beneficial to the environment. The other section I created over here was to talk about the major topics when it comes to the environment, and helping it is to reuse, reduce, and recycle. And in reuse, I gave them examples of how to use it again, and giving them the definition for reuse, and then saying, for example, using a plastic food container, once it's been washed, it could be used for storage, perhaps of toys, depending on its size, or pens, markers, crayons, something of that nature. To reduce means to actually make less trash, and gave some examples about how they could make less trash. For example, taking reusable shopping bags to the grocery store instead of getting plastic ones, because all those plastic bags add up to more trash. And the last little bit down here, hidden behind my books, it says recycle, and it talks about how to use it again or turn it into something else. For example, something fun, #1 type plastics can actually be recycled and turned into carpet or polar fleece. A newspaper can actually become an egg carton. So fun little facts like that can help them understand that recycling an item could actually turn it into something else. Last but not least, our middle section talks about what can you do, and it's trying to highlight for the students what they can do to make an impact on the environment. And it has examples from feeding the worms, which is creating a compost pile, or to find it secondhand, which means that it's okay to shop yard sales and thrift stores to find toys and clothes and things like that. Because then we're actually using less product, so we're then making less trash. And all this is a wonderful lesson to be set up in the spring, as Earth Day is honored on April 22nd. And conducting this thematic center along with the 3 lessons around that time frame helps to emphasize that day, as well as just general Earth Day behavior. And that's why I gave it the title of Earth Day Every Day. Because for me, it's important that students realize that they can make an impact every day, not just that one holiday out of the year. So my book selection. Down here, I did some fun fiction books like Ready Freddy, Save the Earth, and Miss Maple Seeds. And then I did a great series of nonfiction books. The 3 over here focus primarily on trash and what kinds of things are trash and what can be recycled and how much trash is out there and what actually happens to our trash. Students need to be aware that what happens to our trash it just doesn't disappear. It has to go somewhere. And then my other collection over here is a series of nonfiction books. And these became the basis for my English language arts lesson. And they focus on true stories of people making an impact on the environment in a positive way, doing something to change. And this would be my primary book resource. It's called Heroes of the Environment, and it talks of true stories of people who are helping to protect our planet. And within it, there are actually 12 stories. In order to help make this a little more accessible to all my students, I would probably photocopy some of those stories just so that they would have it, because they would be using that as well as these other 4 for my lesson for English Language Arts, which ties to the reading standard for 3rd grade, reading number 9, which is to compare and contrast the most important points and key details presented in 2 texts on the same topic. These would be the 2 texts, the topic being Earth Day. Then they would also be working with standard for 3rd grade for writing, standard number 2, to write an informative explanatory text to examine a topic and convey ideas and information clearly. Additionally, there would be the cross-curricular for social studies, 3rd grade, civics and government 2.2 to exemplify how citizens contribute to the well-being of the community's natural environment. These are actually citizens contributing to the environment. So the students would conduct research out of these books, creating then a Venn diagram to help them compare and contrast. And that would be used for formative assessment to make sure that I understood that they understood the differences in the two texts as well as the similarities. Then they would use that Venn diagram to help them construct at least one-page written piece, about what they discovered, about those differences and about those similarities. And to help them with it, I have a prep checklist to help them go through the steps of writing, as well as a few check your rubrics that help them check their introduction, check their content, and kind of break down each of the components of the writing standard number 2 and have them double check their work before they do a final submission. And that final submission would have a summative assessment of a rubric, so they would know ahead of the game exactly what was expected for their writing piece. So, additionally to the English Language Arts, we'd be doing a science lesson. And the science lesson would be focused on 3rd grade standards, life science number 2, which is to understand how plants survive in their environment. And we would discuss the various things that plants need to survive and do some activities where they practice identifying what those parts of a plant are and the functions of those plants, as well as understanding what environmental things are necessary for a plant to survive. And tied in with our discussions and our group activities would be an experiment. And in this experiment, students would have seedlings that they would plant in a series of cups with different components. For a series of 3, there would be different types of soils. There would be soil, there would be rocks, and there would be sand. For another set of 3, they would be given different liquids. The seedlings would all be planted in soil, and one would receive water, one would receive milk, one would receive orange juice or soda. And then the 3rd set of seedlings would be planted in soil, receive water like it was supposed to, but it'd be in different locations to receive different amounts of sunlight, full sun, full shade, or half and half. So, and the students would be formatively assessed for this lesson on the various discussions with a few exit tickets. There would also be a constructed response quiz at the end to review not only the topics of the parts of a plant, the functions of a plant, and the environmental changes, but also questions about the experiment as well. What did you predict, and what are the processes of doing an experiment? And finally, there would be a journal that would record all of their experiment, as well as some of their group activity information would be recorded in that journal, and there would be a rubric that would be the summative assessment for that science journal to ensure that everything was complete on that. Lesson that we'll do is an art lesson, and we'll be using the standard 3rd grade CX 1.5, which is to use local, natural, or recycled resources to create art. And that ties in with our Earth Day, as we'll be using recycled resources. First, we'd start the lesson by reading the story One Plastic Bag by Miranda Paul, which tells the story of one woman who observed a huge amount of plastic bags littering her community and decided to come up with something to do with them and learn to crochet, and ended up making little coin purses and things of that nature, and even larger bags out of the plastic bags that actually now the women of her community make and sell, and those proceeds help support the local environment and the community, as well as by using all those plastic bags they get rid of the waste. So our little art project will be actually crafting paper beads similar to these, and these beads are made out of magazines. So we will be recycling magazines. It doesn't matter what magazine, it doesn't matter what the picture is on it, because you're going to roll them up, and it's just a matter of rolling and gluing. And so the students would make a collection of beads and then turn them into either a necklace or a bracelet. And the additional tie-in for this could be that craft could be a Mother's Day present that they could give the following month as after this lesson was created. So, to assess this lesson, formatively, they would have a student conference to show the teacher the first bead they created, and the teacher would give feedback as to whether or not it needs a little more glue or rolled a little tightly or those kinds of constructive feedback like that. Then there would also be, after they'd made a few of them, a self-assessment. That's 2-star, 1 wish. And the 2 stars gives themselves compliments about what they think they've done well, and 1 wish as to what they could improve upon. And then the next day when they returned and would continue to work on those beads, they could use that 1 wish to help them create better beads. Finally, they would construct all of their beads and turn them into a necklace and a bracelet, and there would be a brief quiz about that, having them explain the different resources, materials they used, what other materials could be used to recycle to create art, and then finally the actual process that they went through for creating the beads and the necklace. The summative assessment for the art lesson would be a rubric that would evaluate the product, which would be the actual necklace or the bracelets that the students make. So those are the 3 lessons that I would use in conjunction with my Thematic Reading Center of Earth Day every day.